Oh, got something downstairs. All right, back. Good morning, everybody. Set up and ready to roll, huh? All right, here we go. Paste. Okay. And then let's get the chat put together. All right, I think everybody is up. Good morning, good morning. Confusing myself. I poured my cup and then it wasn't there. One more thing, I gotta put my blanket. I'm gonna put the blanket on the dog. Bosh. Good morning. All right. Good morning. Do our little film studies over, getting ready for class today, huh? Let's see. Get this out of the way. Sorry that we're not being set up in the morning like I should be. So that should be there. It's on the other screen. And to put you in the right spot. There we go. I think we are ready finally to get started. Fix this pencil. I need some blue. Let's see there. Get our little framework on here. Let's see. All right, let's get this next one in here. So we got ourselves a downshot, two-figure full. We're hanging it right here. Let's see. There's that. There we go. Good morning. Let's see, we got ourselves a spammer. Okay. Usually we get some real people. Easy enough fix. Okay. Right? Right. Good morning. Good morning. Started at an earlier time, which I think is good for the morning study thing anyway. Alright, so there's one in a rough way, and the other one's much simpler, so that's good too. So it looks like his face is right on the halfway point. Good morning. We got 79 and 80, so 20 of these film studies left. So about 10 days, week and a half after this one. Good. Yeah, as usual, do let me know if there's any questions. I don't mind talking while working in here. Oops. I need to fix this pencil. The kind of inner shaft is separated from the wood part of the pencil. Out of lead in there, huh? Let's see, where is the orange? I want to say orange. Red. On to our last one after this one. See what I mean? This is the 2mm lead. Alright, there we go. Alright, now let's get some ink on there. And we're focusing on, well, I'm focusing, I don't know what you're focusing on, but I'm focusing on the 3-value notan. So I'm trying to avoid the outlines for the most part. I'm on a couple in there, but I don't want that many. So looking at the shapes of the shadows versus the shapes of the light. Good morning. Let's get this thing inked in. That's going to be all black in there. Good morning. Let's see. Interesting pattern on the floor. I'll probably try and go for all that with the what's it called? Confetti. Good morning. Over there on the YouTube side. How are we doing out there in YouTube land? Yeah, let's put that pattern on the floor. This is the more complicated one. You're doing really fine. I'm doing pretty good. Today is a full-time teaching day, so that class starts at 9:30. So doing illustration and acrylic painting and some kit bashing with physical models. So looking forward to that. The semester is underway. Yeah, so I'm doing here, this is my morning study. I've committed myself to doing 100 of these film studies. I've kind of shifted to doing them a bit more in a strict NOTAN approach, which is basically using shapes and silhouettes to describe where things are at. So I'm not using any outlines to show the forms. So this is all going to go into shadow there. So, yeah, but we're hitting number 80 today, so I got 20 more to do that I'm committed to. So, do about 2 a day, so as long as I'm doing this every day, it should take another week and a half. Hey, you got to practice, right? There's the only way you get closer to where you want to be is by moving towards it. And the longer you wait to do that, the further away it gets probably, but also just and also just stay in the same place while time moves on. So these are films today, so I'm looking at current film I'm looking at for this page is Shutter Island. I might go back and repeat some movies or whatever that I've done before, but that's what we're doing on this page. Let's see, let's fill in that larger area with Boosh. But then there's some kind of chair over here. But yeah, so if you want to get closer to that goal, it helps to start pursuing it on the regular. Like I had a guy in here yesterday who was like, how do you move forward? He's got like a wife and kids and a job and all that, and he wants to get better at his art stuff. And can empathize to a certain degree, but I don't have my own personal family here, so. But you just kind of have to have a project. You got to set aside time and a place to work on it, and if you'll do that consistently, you'll be able to move forward. So like I like having these morning study things so that even if I get busy during the day and I don't get to the kind of the creative projects I'm working on, I know this has happened and that I've picked up some new things. Like playing around with these textures in here on the floor from the confetti falling down. I know I've done that, and I've kind of got this time reserved in the morning just to do that first thing in the morning. And I've known plenty of people, with more complicated situations, and that's how they always do it. They always have, if they've got wife and the kids and all that, then they stay up late, or they get up really early, or anyone else is up, so they can focus for an hour or two. And then it takes them more time than if they didn't have all of those perfectly good, wholesome distractions, but um, um, but they do know that they will move forward, and so it might take twice as long. But if they don't do anything, then it'll never happen. So if there's like a thing you want to do, an experience you want to share, then that's kind of the price. So, the hope will only get you so far. At some point, you got to, hopefully the hope is sufficient to compel you to action. So that's always kind of my big recommendation. Lots of ways of doing that, but depending on what it is you want to learn or do in the moment, it doesn't have to be anything that I would particularly care about, but for yourself, that's what it takes. So no, things can get in the way. There's a lot of things to consider. But the nice thing about having that as like your kind of central focus, having a project and having a time and a place, that even if you get busy and things get in the way, you can always go back to it because you knew where you were at from the beginning, and that can make a big difference. There's one. Next one's much easier. Oh, painting is good for you. It's worth learning. People like acrylic because it's simple, relatively speaking. You just need the paint and the water, and some brushes and a surface. It does have its own challenges because it does dry so fast, but some people like that too. Took me a little bit of getting back to it because I haven't really used it in a while, but I still like it. It's still good. But yeah, so if that's something you want to learn to do, then that's worth doing. Like I prefer gouache or watercolor or especially oil for painting, but But I'm using ink here, so. But yeah, pencils are great too. So it depends on what you want to do. It was interesting. I was watching this. What's his name? Francis Manapul. He's a comic book artist. He's done a bunch of DC stuff. He's currently working with the Ghost Machine group, which is kind of run by Jeff Johns. They're doing a bunch of indie comics with Image. And he's doing the Rocket Fellows group, which is, I guess, it's about like this family that's from the future and they're hiding from some people in the future, and so they're in the past. But it was interesting watching it because he was showing kind of his penciling process and things that he thinks are important. He's got this kind of proportional calculator thing, and he uses it because for some reason, and this is maybe someone knows the answer to this because I have no idea why he would work this way. But it seems like he works his pages at random sizes. So rather than having like a standard, 11 by 17 sheet that you can put the same proportions on every time, he's like working on different sized papers, like smaller ones mostly than that. But he'll also do 11 by 17. But he wants to make sure the proportions always stay the same. So he's got this proportional calculator thing. Just seemed really complicated. Like that would, for me, that would be like something that would get in the way of me starting my day because it would be a lot of extra steps to getting to work. And a lot of what I like to do is kind of remove things that kind of get in the way. So, but I thought it was interesting that that he goes through this like huge process. Um, yeah, so he also does these kind of interesting, kind of cinematic videos on his YouTube channel, which is where he was talking about this. He did one recently on the penciling, and then one on the inking. The penciling one's where he's showing off his little proportional calculus. It's a disc that you use to plug numbers into and show relationships. But I also kind of feel like if you wanted to do that, there's like uh, websites that'll do that for you too. But I don't know. But yeah, it was just really confusing because he's like working different sizes and plotting the pages out on these different sized pages. For me, that also can be create an inconsistency in your line weights from page to page. So you obviously, if you're working on a smaller page, your lines are going to appear heavier than if you're working on a larger page, or less detailed at least, or probably heavier too, because the lines proportionally would be thicker. And anyway, I was confused a little bit by what he was doing there. Maybe it's because he lives up in Canada. He's got cabin fever and slowly gone insane. But I'll see that once in a while from different artists where they've got some very particular thing that they do, and you can see it matters to their process. But I look at it and I'm like, well, I don't understand what that would do for me, because I'm narcissistic, I guess. But I would look at it and I'm just like, well, that would be really confusing. Like I would never tell my students to do it that way just because it would confuse them. I think it would confuse me for sure. Why not just use a standard page? or work at one size. Like I read Adventure Man. That's Terry Dodson, and he likes to work at 13 by 19 as his kind of starting page size, so much larger size. I don't know where you get 13 by 19 paper, but it's not A3 and it's way too big. That's too small to be A2, so it's not using those size papers. But um, but yeah, once you have like a set size, then you just everything works proportionally with that size. All right. But yeah, so it was interesting just to see him do that. But I was just still a bit confused by it. I mean, he's a really good illustrator. You go look up his stuff, like Francis Manifold. He's really, really good. I think he's Filipino originally, but there's a bunch of these like Filipino guys that are really great. Um, but again, I just it's interesting to see kind of how. Or I was watching a David Finch interview because he's getting they're launching his comic book project next few weeks, I think, the Skinwalker or Skinbreaker series. In fact, they're doing, I guess, an enlarged version. But he was basically working twice the normal size, so he upsized everything by 2 for the entire project, which is just going to. So they're releasing like a larger edition for the #1 issue, along with the regular one. It's like 8.5 by 11 or whatever, so much larger than a standard comic. Um, but at least he's working at one size the whole time. It's not shifting around. But it was something interesting he said in one of the interviews he did, I think, with Rob Liefeld on his little Rob Liefeld podcast. I always appreciate his energy on there. It's just like go, 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 go the whole time. Probably takes a nap afterward, but it's interesting to hear him talk too because he's not a trained artist. When Rob was talking, like he has no, he just kind of hit the pavement running when he was like 17, 18 years old. Marvel. Um, he kind of makes those old videos of him talking to Stan Lee really funny just because he's talking to this basically kids, especially with Rob there. But um, yeah, Finch is basically, he says basically he doesn't even really do thumbnails. He just kind of jumps into the page. He doesn't do any kind of roughs or thumbnails or kind of too much planning beyond like the quick sketching he does on the page, which is interesting because it's not something I could see doing that to a certain degree, but it's something I would ever say teach a student to do because they'll just kind of it'll take them a lot longer to get things done and end up tripping over themselves in the process. Um, but I guess he says he's never really done too much planning when he does his work. Be curious to go back and look and see maybe what effect that has on his projects, like if it affects how clear things read or something. It's like I think someone was telling me, concept artist, mostly just 3D stuff, but he was recommending I check out the Blame manga, and I bought one of them a long time ago, and I remember like being somewhat confused by it. Like I couldn't tell quite what was happening, but it's been a long time since I looked at it, so I picked up a #2 just to, so why not? Um, and so I've been rereading #1. There's not very much dialogue or exposition or anything in inside the mango, which can work. You don't necessarily need a lot, but his visual storytelling is really confusing. Like I can't tell what's happening a lot of the time. Like I don't understand how one panel connects to another panel. Hello, hola over there in Chile. I assume that's what you're saying. But I think that was one of the big reasons I kind of stopped reading. It's like I was reading this and I'm like, I don't understand, what's going on, why I should care, what are the character motivations, how does one event connect to another event. It just seemed really disconnected. Like the imagery is interesting. For the most part. Some of the figure stuff is a little what I would call janky. So figures don't necessarily feel that well connected. Like the structure feels like it's very rubbery. Maybe it's just a style thing. I don't know, but I know they've done anime for. I think I watched it a long time ago. The 3D anime of it, but that was my kind of impression. So I've been rereading that just to see what's in there. To a certain degree, I think I wanted to do something like that with my little story I'm working on, where like the characters just kind of mostly exploring an environment. I've changed that since then, but that was kind of one thing I was considering. Um, all right, let's get the outlines on these and call this done for the morning. Take a little bit for it to dry, but let's see, lid, that, and lid on this, so nobody, spills on anything, which has never happened in my entire life, except for all the times that it has. And 79, 80. Get that 20 left. All right. Outlines on, and put the date on here for the morning. So shutter. Island, and today is the 5th. And thanks for everybody that tuned in. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you all later.